Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Friday Night Young at Heart, featuring nursery rhymes, stories, songs, poems, Mother Goose, Aesop's fables, Lewis Carroll, limericks, larks, epics, stories of the great operas, and such. To keep us all young at heart, I'm Father James DiLuzio back in the Rectory Library of the Paulist Fathers here in New York City with the conclusion of Acts 3 and 4 by special request of the great Giacomo Puccini's opera La Boheme. Now, as you may recall, when we left last week with the first two acts being described, our Bohemians have been living a life of true Bohemians. Devil may care, just make hay while the sun shines, as each of the main characters are pursuing their arts and they really don't care if they're making money or not, although, of course, that is their hope, that they will become true professionals. And we had the main characters are, of course, Rodolfo, the poet, his good friend Marcello, who is a painter. We have Chouinard, the musician, and we have Colline, the philosopher. These four young men are renting a garret, very cold, unheated, really low income, but they're bold, they're young, they don't care a little bit. In the first act, they actually burned some of the furniture and some of Rodolfo's poems just to get a fire going. They're so cold. All the same, I didn't give you that detail, did I, in the first one? Then, of course, Rodolfo meets Mimi. She comes in asking for to light her candle. And then Chouinard had made a great income having to play all day for a parrot. So they decided to use this money. It's Christmas Eve. They go down to the Cafe Momo, and they're having a grand time. And there, we met Musetta, who was Marcello's old flame. Insanely jealous, that Marcello. But they are reunited. Now, one thing I didn't tell you about in the second act, because Chouinard had this windfall of finally getting a really nice salary for his day. They have lots of money. So Colline went and bought himself a new coat, and Rodolfo bought a gift for Mimi, a beautiful, beautiful little pink bonnet. Now, you recall, they spent all their money, and they didn't have money to pay for the dinners for the 4 or 5, 6 of them. But Musetta, who had the sugar daddy who had taken her to dinner, makes him pay for the dinner after, of course, they've already left. So now, in Act 3, it takes place in February, and things are not going so well for our Bohemians. On a financial level, Marcello and Musetta are doing pretty well. They're living and working at a tavern, it seems, but Marcello's jealousy is very, very active, and let's face it, Musetta is a flirt. So there's constant tension between these two. Marcello, at the beginning of the act, comes rushing out of the tavern. He's just so frustrated. And who should come to see him but Mimi? And Mimi is heartbroken because although she loves Rodolfo very much, and she's not upset over their poverty, he's turned insanely jealous, and he's making her miserable. And in the midst of this, she's coughing quite a bit. She clearly is not well. So Marcello says, just leave him. It's just not worth it. So, of course, there's all this irony here, the pot calling the kettle black, But so, lo and behold, Rodolfo is in that tavern. He has fallen asleep on a bench. And he comes out, of course. And shocked, Mimi, what's going on? And it seems that he tells Marcello. Oh, well, actually, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Rodolfo comes out, but Mimi goes and hides. She hides behind a tree. She doesn't want to see Rodolfo. And here, he confesses to Marcello that he knows that Mimi has to leave him, not because he's jealous, but because the poor girl is very, very sick, and she, like Musetta of old, needs to find some sugar daddy. She needs to find someone who can support her and get her proper medical care. because our Bohemians are, well, of course, as you know, Bohemians. Oh, I didn't ever mention Mimi's art. She's a beautiful seamstress. And so perhaps in a better milieu she'd get better. Now, Mimi didn't know this. She didn't know that this was this ruse of this Marcello. Rodolfo's trying to chase her away, which wasn't really honest, but hey, they're Bohemians. So she comes out then, and he's heartbroken that she knows his secret. And so they decide that they do love each other very much, and they will stay together until the spring. But then Rodolfo makes Mimi promise that she will leave him and find someone who can support her well, because evidently Rodolfo will never do that, at least not in the immediate future. And she sings this beautiful, beautiful aria called Addio, farewell, without rancor. We shall go and we will part, but we will stay there for the winter. And oh, it's such a beautiful scene, and it starts to snow, and it's just gorgeous. And then near the end after the aria, and there's still a little more conversation, out comes Marcello and Musetta calling each other all names. He calls her a strega, a witch. So you get the contrast of the two kinds of relationships. So that ends Act 3, and the section in the comments to link, I let you hear this beautiful Addio aria. This one's sung by Anna Netrebko, beautiful, beautiful soprano. But before you go to that, I want to show you what the scene should look like. This is from a recording I have with Jussi Björling as Rodolfo and Victoria de Los Angeles as Mimi. There's Rodolfo and Mimi, and there you see Marcello and Musetta arguing at the very close of the third act. The scene that on the YouTube excerpt of Addio, the set is awful. So here you get a realistic look of what it was kind of like to be. It's a great recording. I recommend it. And also this one, and then the one with Luciano Pavarotti and Maria Freni, conducted by Herbert von Karajan. That is considered the litmus test for a great, great La Boheme recording. Both of them actually are quite favorites of most critics and me. All right, now the sad and tragic fourth act. It's spring, and both the women have left both men. So Mimi is gone, Musetta has gone, and we're still back with the foursome of Rodolfo and Marcello and Schaunard and Colleen. And they're having fun, they're roughing it out, they're playing pretend swords and making fun of the fact that the two, Rodolfo and Marcello, miss their women and all these things. And it's fun music. It's a lot of fun music. And then what happens is Musetta comes in announcing she has heard and seen Mimi, and Mimi is very sick to the point of dying. And she insists, wherever she's living with, she's obviously living with someone she's been a little more comfortable. Not too comfortable because she's cold again. Her dying wish is to see Rodolfo again. So she brings her in, and she's extremely feeble, and she's clearly coming to the end of her very, very young life. They place her on the only couch they have, is really one of the beds, and Rodolfo is just completely heartbroken. And there's some beautiful music reminiscent of their initial meeting of Che gela di Manina and Mi chiamo Mimi, when she talks about herself to him as they reveal themselves to each other. And it's extremely very poignant. And Musetta, we don't quite expect, she prays a Hail Mary, or just a bit of it, to Puccini sets to music. And so she says, well, she's going to go out and get Mimi a muff, because she complains how cold her hands are. Those beautiful, how cold her hands are. That was Rodolfo's aria to her in Act 1, Che gela di Manina, how cold your hands. And so she goes out to buy a muff, and Colleen is willing to go out and sell that coat that he bought at Christmas Eve just a few months ago to bring in a doctor for her, and they leave her alone with Rodolfo for a while. As I said, they have reminiscent of the music of their first meeting. It's very, very touching. And then when they come back, she gives her, Musetta gives Mimi the muff, and they get put the little bonnet on, the one that Rodolfo had bought her. But Rodolfo is in denial that this is her dying moment, and the others try to comfort him. And at last they call out Coraggio to him when he realizes Mimi has left this world and gone to the next. The only reference of religion is that sense of the Ave Maria that Musetta prays. And we see, in a sense, I don't know if we quite call it a morality tale, but the frivolity of the living of the Bohemians, and now the reality of sickness and death and their inability to really tend to each other and support one another brings part of the poignancy of the opera. So to truly live fully, we have to be mindful of death, not in a morose way, but in a way that recognizes the ebb and flow of life, death and resurrection, but also our responsibility for life, and affirming life and taking care of life, taking responsibility for ourselves amidst some magnificent and beautiful music. I hope you enjoy the excerpt that I will put in the commentary. It's another YouTube that you can watch. And as I said, now you have a sense of the setting as it could be. But don't pay attention to the setting. Anna Netrebko and Piotr Bashkala as Mimi and Rodolfo do a very fine job. Thank you so much for joining me. I have some Advent Christmas stories coming up in the next upcoming Fridays. The season of Advent to prepare us for Christmas begins tomorrow evening, Saturday evening, and I'm going to begin a parish mission on Luke Live for Advent and Christmas, so I'm really looking forward to that at St. Peter's and Paul Parish in New Jersey, near Trenton, a little further south. Cherry Hill, actually, south of that. I keep forgetting the name. Sewell, New Jersey? That's where I'm going to be. Thank you so much. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And remember, every day find something that we're thankful for, especially at night before we go to bed. Thank you, God. There was something had to be good. Indeed. Thank you so much. God bless everyone. Good night. Blessings for Advent.